Hello, everyone. It's Kene once again. Right. Today, I shall be talking about a very important concept in programming, and that is loops. So, what are loops? Right. A loop is, I would say, a structure, right, that is used when you, as a programmer, need to repeat a sequence of instructions. So that's a structure that you would really come to mind, a loop. What's the syntax of the loop in Python? Now that depends on which of the two types of loops we have in Python, the while loop and the for loop. Now for this lesson, this video, I will be restricting myself to the while loop. Right, guys. So now the loop has two parts, the condition part and then the code execution part. That's how I would like to describe the two parts. So in the first segment, you test a condition. And if the condition is true, then a sequence of instructions will be, a sequence of commands will be executed. Now, the command gets executed repeatedly until the condition in the condition part of the loop is no longer true. Now let me show us what I mean. Now I'm going to create a variable called counter, and I'm going to set it to 1. Now what I want to do here is get the computer to get me all the numbers from 1 to 100. Right? And it will not make sense that I should do this. Print 1, and then come right here, print 2, and on, have this print method for the different numbers from 1 to 100, when I could just simply use a loop for that. So I'm going to say while counter is less than, now I need all the numbers from 1 to 100 printed to the console. So I'm going to have this as 101. So provided that counter is less than 101, now print the counter. So that's what we need to do, just like that. Take note of the indentation. This here is like the condition part, and the statement, the expression here is executed, right, with an indentation. Now I'm going to have this colon here. What's happening here, guys? If I run this program this far, it's going to create an endless loop, an infinite loop, and I'll explain why. So it keeps, printing 1, 1, 1, because it tests the condition. Counter is initialized as what? 1. So counter is 1 and 1 is less than 101, print 1. It comes back and still finds counter as 1. 1 is less than 101, it prints 1. So there's something missing. There is the update part of the loop. That is that part where that counter variable needs to get updated. I need to say increment it by 1, add 1 to the current value of counter at that point, so that there is a mechanism for increasing this counter value. So counter will go from 1 to 2, then it comes into the loop again, gets changed from 2 to 3. The counter is 3, it prints the 3, then gets updated to 4. So I just keep adding 1 within the loop to the value of counter. So that will just simply be counter equal the current value of counter plus 1 added to it. And when this expression is evaluated, the new value returned is stored in this counter variable. So that's the way of incrementing the value of counter. So I'm going to run, and then we'll see what happens now. All the values from 1 to 100 get printed, right? So that's just the basic structure of the while loop. Hope you understand. Now, the second thing I want to talk about here, guys, is that you can use the if-else statement within the while loop. So you want to test, do some further tests, carry out some further tests within the while loop. So now I want to check, okay, what numbers are even? Sorry about that, guys. What numbers are even and what numbers are odd? So what I want to do here now is to create two, I want to create two lists. Like, remember lists are containers for holding multiple values, right? So I'm going to call these evens and initialize that to an empty string, and I'll call these odds and initialize that to an empty string. Now, what do I want to do, guys? I'm going to use if here to test for something. I want to check if the value of counter at this particular point is an even number. So how do I do that? If counter, remember the modulus operator, that's what you use when you wish to return or get the value that is the remainder after a division operation. So when I say divide 7 by 3, that's 2 with a remainder of 1. So it is that 1 that gets returned when you use the modulus operator. So counter, sorry guys, counter. So let me just make this 2 because I want to test evens and odds. Counter is when I divide, so this should be modulus 2. If the remainder is 0, that is, if there is no remainder, then I know that that number, the value of counter, is an even number. Even numbers are divisible by 2 without remainders, right? Okay, so that's what I have here. Then what should happen? So I want to print the value of counter with a comma there, then a string is an even number, right? Then if it isn't, in other words, if the current value of counter divided by 2 returns a number that is not 0, so if it returns 1, that means there's a remainder of 1. There is a remainder, provided that there's a remainder when I divide a number by 2, then that number is odd, right? So I'm just going to use the else statement there, and then let me just copy this. Counter is an odd number, just like that. Now remember, guys, that the if and the else need to be indented. And then this is a test here, testing a condition. And the expression needs to be indented. The expression that should be executed after this condition is resolved to true. Then I need to indent what expression should be executed, right? Now the else too lies at the same is at the same hierarchy as the if, right? So they should both be aligned vertically. And then what expression should be executed comes indented after the else statement, the else keyword there, right? Okay, so guys, let's do that and let's run our program, see what we have. So 2 is an even number, 3 is an odd number, and on and on and on like that. Right, I hope you understand these, guys. Now one final thing I want to talk about is the else within the whole structure, right? What if I want to get something like an expression executed when this test here, this condition is no longer met? I want something executed, right? So I will use the else keyword there, the else statement, just like this. Now this else is not a component of the if else block. This else forms part of the while loop. That is, oh, sorry guys. It is that part that should be executed after all this has taken place, that is when this test here resolves to what? False. Then just give us what is in the else block here. So I may now say eventually the code will come to an end. So what should happen now? I will just print the loop is over, just like that. The loop is over. So let's see. Yeah, so we see, guys, when all this is complete and this is false, that is counter is no longer less than 101, then end with the loop is over. That's why we have this else statement here, right? Okay, thank you, guys. Yeah, the next thing, it's not really, I wanted to have it as part of a separate video, but it's just on the second thought, I should just have it in this video. Talking about the continue statement and the break statement. Now, these two statements are used within loops. In this case now, the while loop. And what's the use? Let's say there's a part of that iteration that I do not want to reckon with. I don't want to do anything at that point. I just want to ignore what should be executed at that point. And I'm going to use the continue statement that is telling the computer to just ignore whatever it should have done at that point. That's for the continue statement. We'll see the use. Then the break statement is used when you want to exit the loop. You don't want it to like skip. The continue statement is to skip what should be done in a particular cycle. You just keep that. The break statement gets the loop ended, right? It ends the loop. That's the use of the break. Let's see an instance here of the use here of the continue statement. Now I have counter set to 2. Now while counter is less than 101, I just need to increase counter. So counter, I'll use the long method, which is simply counter plus 1, right? But you could just have that the short way with plus equal 1. That's the short way. So I just want to increase counter before outputting the result. So I'll just say print counter. So it's going to print counter there, right? And then I'm going to ask, okay, so what should happen if counter is equal to 10? I don't want anything printed. So at that point, when counter is 10, it should just keep it. It should just keep it and go to the next. So I'm going to use the continue statement. Just like that, continue, right? Then I'm going to do what here, guys? I'm now going to print. Oh, okay, I printed already, right? So let's see what that gives us. Right. We'll see if there's a 10. Oh, sorry, guys. This should not be here. I don't want the 10 printed. I want it skipped. So that was an error on my part. Okay, so what happens is it prints 2, prints 3, counter keeps changing. And then when it sees that counter is 10, it will simply just ignore printing that 10. And from this point, instead of getting to this line 9, it reaches line 8 and sees that the value of counter is 10, and it meets continue. That is, it will send the loop back to the beginning, like it goes back to the while. It doesn't print the counter, the value of counter. That's what it means here. So I'm going to run my program, and we'll see that 10 does not get printed. So it goes from 9 to 11. I hope you understand this, guys. Don't get confused, please. Just, replay the video and then, you get a better understanding of the while loop and the continue statement. Now, what about the break? I'm still going to use this example, right? Instead of having the loop continue, it should just break. So you would see that after 9, it reaches 10, and that's where the loop ends. It doesn't print anything from 10, to 100. That's now the use of the break statement. So let's see. Do we see, guys? It goes from 3 to 9. And then when it reaches 10, it breaks. The loop ends. It exits the program. The whole program ends at this point. The loop ends at this point. So it doesn't get to print anything after the 9. So those are two instances. One showing illustrating the use of the continue statement, and the other example illustrating the use of the break statement. Right. I hope you understand this, guys. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.